Hi.
Hi.
Okay. All right. We're broadcasting and we're going to do a sound check real quick. So I know my reliable people are on here to tell me they can hear me. Okay. Hi, Kim and Linda. Hey, Maria. Sinead, I love that. What a great name. I've always loved that name. And not just because of Sinead O'Connor, but let's put it out there. I'm aging myself. In the 80s, she was at, yeah. So in the chat, if someone will throw in there that we are good on sound. And then I would love if someone would pop out to the Facebook group and tell me we're good out there too. And I'm in the process of going live. So give me a minute, everyone. We're just making sure we are good with technology. And it's preparing the live stream preview. Okay. Thanks. All good. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Okay. So give us a minute to get streaming on Facebook. It's taking just a moment to load. And hang on a minute. Talking to us about hormones, and then we're going to do a proper introduction. I always say proper introduction because I start talking when we're on here and I feel like I'm already telling people who you are. So here we go. It looks like we're live. All right, everybody. Awesome. So here we are. As a reminder, please put your questions in the Q&A today. I know that we can get excited and start putting things into the chat, but it's really hard for me to keep up with that, as you know. Anything you want to ask goes in Q&A. We like to wrap up around the 1 hour mark. So if you have questions past that time and we don't get to them, I do apologize. So please look through the questions and make sure nothing's been asked already before you post. So today we're talking with Dr. Cabeca, and I already screwed it up. She's an Emory University trained gynecologist and obstetrician, a menopause and sexual health expert, and international speaker and educator. She created the top selling products, Jova. Did I say that right? Jova? Yeah. Awesome. An anti-aging feminine cream for women. Mighty Mac Plus, a superfood Mighty Mac Plus.
Mighty Maca Plus.
Maca, there's no A on here. Yeah, okay.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay. A superfood hormone balancing health drink and online programs, Magic Menopause, women's restorative health, and sexual CPR. Please, we all need that. Read her blog at drAnnaCabeca.com and follow her on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And yeah, so I want to ask you really quick. First of all, thanks for being with us, but tell me about the Mighty Maca Plus right off the bat, because we had a conversation about maca going on just yesterday.
Oh, that's fabulous. Well,
yes.
Part of my healing journey, that stemmed from when I was diagnosed with early menopause, actually ovarian failure at age 39. Told I was never able to have another child. I took this healing journey, left my medical practice here in Brunswick, Georgia, Southeast Georgia. I went on this healing journey around the world, literally, and I met with healers. And one of my first stops was Peru. And in Peru, they always say, if you're not feeling good, take maca. And if you're infertile, take maca. And if your, baby's not thriving, take maca. And then they elbowed my husband, and they would say, and it's the Peruvian Viagra. I'm like, oh yeah. So, I had to look at it and look it up and look at the scientific composition of it and see really what would make it do all these things. And it was fascinating. The maca in and of itself is this cruciferous vegetable. So right away, we know that it's good for breast health and hormone balancing. We can think about that and estrogen detoxification.
We got you frozen. Give it just a second.
Oh.
Hold on just a moment. You're freezing up. That's okay. Hold on. Okay, there we go. We're back. Go ahead.
All right. Well, let me just make sure that there's no other interference on my end. We're right in the midst of Hurricane Michael coming through.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So yeah, everyone bear with us. This is technology. Things happen. So we're good. But
okay.
So you said you had to look at the maca and we lost you right there. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I looked up what the composition of maca was, and maca actually has its own unique proteins called macaines, not found in any other vegetable, and has this adaptogenic property for the adrenals and also, I believe, for our genetics. So if we're overrun or under, or burnout, it can help balance both extremes, which is pretty cool. And then also it contains a high percentage of arginine, which is what we need to produce nitric oxide, which is how Viagra works. So actually it has that benefit, and it's an all-around balancing root plant. So I incorporated that in with over 30 other superfoods from around the world to really create this holistic product. But that's the story of maca, and it's pretty cool because the ancient Incan warriors, it's reported that they would drink maca before they went into battle, so they'd have the stamina to fight for an endurance.
That's so cool. Okay, so I wanted to ask about that just because of that conversation. I didn't want to forget because I said, well, I'll ask about it tomorrow. So let's back up a little bit. And can you tell us a little bit about your journey? I know that it's really helpful for coaches to share their stories with their clients so that they can relate. So give us a little bit about what, your journey. You said it took you around the world. I think that's fascinating. So tell us how that went.
Yeah. So as part of like my healing journey and how I do what I do, as you mentioned, I'm trained gynecologist and obstetrician. I trained at Emory University in Atlanta. And so I felt really well equipped to address all things hormonal. However, when we suffered a traumatic event in our life, we had a traumatic loss of our child in a senseless accident, and he was just a toddler. And that ignited, you can imagine, just incredible disease and grief and depression, and everything changed for me. I went from breastfeeding this beautiful child to never having another drop of milk. So moms know, if you breastfed a child, you know that if you miss like a feeding by 10 minutes, your breasts are engorged, never another drop of milk. And from there, completely infertile and unable to conceive again. And it was what I was told. And I was at a loss, that I just grieving from all kinds of ways. So for me, travel's always been my meditation and best education. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. And from that experience, getting holistic medicines, herbs, philosophies really from around the world. I say I don't discriminate on modalities of healing if they work. I incorporated that, and lo and behold, I conceived a healthy baby at 41, had her at 42, and that just started this, kicked myself out of irreversible premature menopause, kicked myself out of irreversible permanent infertility, and had another baby and have gone. She's now 10, so another 10 years till a second range of menopause. Wow. So hence the menopause expertise from living it a couple times out and understanding the effects of stress on our physiology and how we can use natural solutions when, and that should be our first approach. It shouldn't be what we seek after all the medicines, all the surgeries, all the procedures don't work. It should be our first approach. And so that's what I'm passionate about giving women, because that's what worked for me after everything else didn't work.
Right. You were almost like the bottom of the bottoms. Like you were at the bottom at a very young age. So yeah, I'm a big believer in, trauma and stress and how those things affect us as well. And so would that mean that you believe that going to herbs and all of those things before even thinking about bioidentical hormones or anything else, is that your first go-to?
Absolutely. It absolutely is. And detoxification. Let's empower our body to produce as many of our hormones naturally as we can. And I would say, I am a big fan. My expertise is in bioidentical hormones, and we use them when we need to. And we need them as a rule, especially as we're getting older and we're changing this physiology, because I believe that if we lived in the Amazon and we're in nature 24/7, right, the way we were designed, we might not need bioidentical hormones. Right. But in dealing with the extra toxins, stresses, lifestyle demands that we do, they become a great addition. But again, herbals and empowering our body to create that balance makes all the difference in the world.
Right. So let's go to the very basics. We have a lot of new coaches on. I'm sure there's a lot of new coaches in the Clarity group that are listening to this. So basically talk to us about hormones and how they affect our health.
Yeah. Well, again, like we start from the top. Hormones are the chemical messengers of our body. They are a communication system. It is, the best way to describe this, and I know, I just always love to say it's like Thanksgiving dinner at your table. You've got a whole bunch of different personalities. You've got loud mouth. You've got quiet, soft spoken. You've got this range of excitability and ups and downs, right? That is our hormones in our body, and they're all communicating. So, and when one is stressed and loud mouthing everything, all the others tend to, repress, back up, and some often get depleted and, not produced. So the starting hormone that is so important for us as women is, like, I call this the mother hormone. It's our progesterone and pregnenolone both. And it's really important to understand, especially as coaches, when you're counseling a client, woman or male, who's had post-traumatic stress, who has suffered from adverse childhood events, that they may have a trouble converting pregnenolone to GABA or allopregnanolone, a GABA precursor. So that calm, that anxiety, that peace, they're unable to get there because they're not converting. So we really have to work on those cortisol pathways. Another really big, powerful, and probably one of the most powerful hormones in our body. I always say that as a gynecologist, I want to say progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, even DHEA are master hormones, but it's not true. They are cortisol, insulin, and oxytocin. So in all my programs, Magic Menopause and online programs are all focused on empowering these hormones, because that will help the progesterone, that will help the estrogen, that will help the testosterone, and fine-tuning those later as needed becomes, just that icing on the cake.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned oxytocin. So I'm going to full on admit, I'm pretty transparent with my people. I don't have a whole lot of, I don't hold back a lot. I think it's important to be who we are out in the world. And I have tried the oxytocin spray up the nose. Let me just say that is a miserable thing. Do you believe that stuff works? Do you think it's something to invest in? And what do you do if you're struggling with oxytocin, if you don't believe in that?
Yeah, well, I think it's first I would ask, well, what did you take it for?
Well, it was about 2 years ago, I guess. And it was kind of one of those little black market things. It was one of our Mindshare people that put it into my head, and I won't use names. But it had to do with how I literally was feeling low in all the happy stuff. I now know why, but at the time was probably in denial about the reason why I was feeling that way. And so it was really, we were using a Band-Aid and we didn't even know it. So it wasn't effective because it wasn't the problem, but not to say that today when things are much better, if I ever needed it, would it be something that would be beneficial to me?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I asked because initially, as in sexual health, I started using oxytocin, trying the nasal spray for clients to help with orgasm. So it didn't necessarily help so much there. I since got better at prescribing it, let's say in vaginal troches or in combinations of my Dream Cream or Joy Gel, prescription formulas that I created to help with sensation orgasm. But not ideal, right? It just really depends. But then after my trauma and PTSD and burnout and kind of, dealing with the whole disconnect, which I blog about frequently, from the cortisol oxytocin disconnect phenomenon, addressing it in short term, like if we're suffering from chronic everyday stress, exhaustion, using it in certain individuals, like on your way home from work, so you can be present, relax, chill with your family when you get home. There's an option there. And I work with my compounder to create troches that you would do, usually 30 IUs, typically 30 to 50, never more than 50 IUs a day. And so that depends, but you can start at 10 IUs and work up in the right client. So first, to test who is that right client. I mean, this is a whole evaluation. I have a quiz on my website called the oxytocin quiz, right? Let's just see, just based on your score, first of all, do you need it? That's one thing. Let me just assess your symptoms. Secondly, I would give an injection of oxytocin and watch what happens. And I'll never forget, I had a young man, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I had a young man in my practice who was the son of a woman I was treating for this reason. And she's like, I probably shouldn't have said this, I shouldn't have, but I gave him a half of one of my oxytocins that you gave me, and he was a spectrum on the autistic disorder. And she goes, will you evaluate him? And I'm like, absolutely. And I gave him that injection right away, pinked up on his ears. This guy, stoic footballer, 21-year-old who was sitting back like this, leaned forward, starts to smile, and he felt relaxed. So I could see the physiologic change. So definitely his body needed some oxytocin. So there's certainly the prescription. That's just a Band-Aid. What do we want to do? Let's incorporate activities like meditation to drive down cortisol. What activities improve oxytocin? Maybe, one thing for him, loves pets. Let's have playtime with a pet. What can you do with throwing the ball to your dog? What can you do to increase oxytocin, your play, your laughter, calling a friend that makes you laugh, watching funny movies, having sex and orgasms? Those will help stimulate oxytocin. It's more powerful than anything we can give. Those are Band-Aids, definitely. So we have to work through the full physiologic natural response. But when cortisol is, when you're pedal to the metal with cortisol, it's really a challenge.
Yeah. I love that you're saying that about getting back to the natural thing, because, my thing is always like, investigate why it's happening, get to the bottom of it. Don't just put things on top of it. Don't throw supplements and cleanses at people, find out why. And I had I posted something yesterday and the day before about connection, about how we've lost physical and human connection. And I feel like so much of it, like hugging increases oxytocin, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So, well, now you know why I have a child who pushes me away, and my 3 dogs that are like, can you please pet me more? Like, I remember like reading about that, how to increase them naturally, because it's so important. And I think that losing that connection is part of the reason why we have problems with oxytocin today. Don't you think?
100%. Yeah, there's a few philosophies, and there's probably a layering of things, but definitely, that is one of them.
Yeah. So does oxytocin change as we age, just like the other hormones? And talk a little bit about how they change as well.
So, in general, I love to give the analogy of what I've seen in my practice. Oxytocin may change as we age, but it's still so vital. We know that if we have older adults, 70, 80, and we increase their oxytocin activities or increase their oxytocin, that they have the age-related benefits from it. So increase in muscle mass, increase in memory, increase in sense of enjoyment. So we know that no matter how old we are, we benefit from oxytocin. So that's a huge realization. And it, again, is important. It's the most important hormone for our entire life. So we have to keep that in our daily practices, that we're doing something that stimulates oxytocin. Taking the time when your dog comes to the door and is like, oh, I just love you, I love you, I love you. That we pet, play, enjoy, breathe, chill, and allow that phenomenon to happen and to enjoy that. So as we age, like one of the things as a gynecologist, what I see so often is women in their 30s coming in and having PMS, right? So the premenstrual syndrome, irritability, agitation, maybe their cycles are starting to get more uncomfortable, and they come in. Our standard of care is to give you Prozac. Here, take this Prozac, even just 2 weeks out of the month, and that will help. And then the client comes back in, and what we see is increased irregular bleeding, heavier cramps, more painful periods, breakthrough bleeding. And we're like, okay, well, here's the birth control pill that'll just shut down your ovaries and take care of that for you. The client comes back in and still having trouble. And I always say, if you hate your husband only 2 weeks out of the month, it is probably your hormones and not your husband. So I'm sure he contributes somewhat, but it's that cycle that is a big clue to what's going on. So the client comes back in and they're still having problems with bleeding, pain, discomfort. So we're like, okay, well, you're over 40. Let's just go ahead and take out your uterus. You don't want to have any more children. And while we're there, since you're over 40, we'll take out your ovaries so you won't ever have that risk of ovarian cancer. And then the client comes back in and says, okay, I'm not having any more pelvic pain or bleeding, but I'm having agitation, irritation, memory loss. Can't remember the last time I have sex, and I'm not sure if it's memory loss or it's just been so long, and that type of phenomenon. So the next thing you're doing, we're writing a prescription to the divorce attorney and to the psychiatrist. And that's standard of care. And so as I started using bioidentical progesterone, as I started doing detoxification regimens, let me just give you an example. A patient would come to my office. I'll order blood hormone panels and tests to look at for optimal lab values, not normal. And from that, send them home with a detoxification regimen and maybe some bioidentical progesterone, depending on how significant their symptoms are. And they would come back for their lab results in 6 weeks and say, I am 90% better. I haven't felt this good in 10 years. So this person who I could have, been scheduling for surgery, right, down the road, is now 90% better. And that fine tuning is all that needs to happen there. Right. That makes the difference. We then balance it. Most women are struggling with estrogen dominance. This phenomenon, as progesterone declines first in our mid-30s, then estrogen and testosterone, DHEA, starts declining in our 20s, that we're having these imbalances in our hormones too, because of all the estrogen mimickers and hormone disruptors that our body's having to deal with, creates the shift, this out of balance, and why it is so prevalent, probably in every one of your coaching clients.
Yeah, I would agree. And so for those of you who are new to this kind of language, estrogen dominance, even if your hormones are in decline, tell me if I'm wrong, even if progesterone is dropping and estrogen is dropping, everything's dropping, you can still have more estrogen than progesterone, even if they're all dropping, and that can create a problem. And doesn't that cause problem with the liver? The liver can't release the estrogen, and then a host of other things happens, correct?
Correct. Absolutely. 100%.
Okay. Yeah. So are you seeing, are we seeing an earlier transition into these types of hormone problems in young girls? I mean, because I remember things changing for me right after I had my son. Everyone's like, oh, when you're 45, you'll start having hot flashes and going into perimenopause. And I started having problems much earlier. I mean, literally within 4 years after having him, I think I was 38, 39. I'm like, what is going on? What is this? What's happening?
Yeah.
But I'm also hearing that with my friends and their young girls, they're having all these problems as well.
100%. I saw it in my practice because technically, according to our book, our essentially Bible of Reproductive Endocrinology by Dr. Spiroff, menopause hits us on average at age 52, plus or minus 5 years. I would say that's I'm seeing it in the mid to late 30s. Absolutely. Seeing that hormone, hot flashes, vaginal dryness, loss of sex drive, the irregular cycles, all that, we'll call that perimenopause. It can last 15 years. And so I am definitely seeing that in younger and younger women, and not to mention our young girls, certainly entering menarche, starting their periods earlier, and having more discomfort with them. Yeah. So often these 11, 12, 13-year-olds would be brought to my practice for expert advice already put on birth control pills. Already. That is unacceptable. Yeah. That is absolutely unacceptable, because the hormone destruction that creates to your body, we need those transition times. Just like we need it when we start our periods for rewiring of our brain, our nervous system, we need it when we're going through menopause. We need this rewiring. And that's really important to understand. We need to breeze through menopause in a balanced way. That's really critical, not to completely mask it, shut it down, or have 30-year-old hormones. We have to balance it.
Yeah, no, I've heard that too. I've heard people say, well, why wouldn't you want your hormones to be like they were in your 30s? I'm like, well, because I'm not 30 anymore, because I'm 47 now. So but that things change. So can you define, kind of briefly define what it means to be in perimenopause, be in menopause, and then postmenopause, like those 3 stages? Because I think people are really confused. And I hear my friends too, like friends that in my community are like, oh, I'm in menopause. I'm like, you just had a period like a month and a half ago. How can you're not in menopause? So there's a lot of confusion about what it really means. Can you clear that up for us?
Yeah, and it's true. It's terrible terminology. I keep thinking, how can I redefine menopause? You know what I mean? Because it's terrible terminology. Perimenopause is like the time leading to menopause when you're experiencing these hormone changes, but that's really not well defined. Menopause is 12 months without a period, but those of us who have gone through this know, like, man, it's 11 and a half months and I had a period, so I'm not menopausal, but then it's going to be another, who knows, will I have another one? The girls come home from college. I've experienced this numerous times. I'm like, I'm pretty much done. And then my daughter and her friends come home from college for spring break or Christmas break, and lo and behold, periods start up again. So we're like, okay, is this menopause? It's not menopause. Well, really? We're getting caught up in terminology, and it's just not good terminology. Postmenopause is the period after that one day of, the 12th month of not having a period. That is menopause. So we call that after postmenopause. And so I just look at it all the period, this transition time period around menopause, and I look at it as a 5-10 year window, if not longer, because I have women in my programs that have been struggling with hot flashes for 15 years till they got help, till we figured out their physiology and fixed it. 15 years after menopause with hot flashes. Yeah. That's insane. We shouldn't be experiencing that. And so I think, I don't know, Carmen, you're going to have to help me come up with some good terminology, because it doesn't. Yeah.
Mine will involve cuss words. Because I have been in that, the postmenopause, let's see, I would say I had a hysterectomy, I had fibroids the size of baseballs. It was pretty miserable. Left the uterus, took the uterus, left the ovaries intact. And everyone's like, oh, you look fabulous. You don't have that muffin top. I'm like, I know, what's happening? Well, a year and a half later, I'm like, what is this? Right? I didn't realize how they were already, the blood supply was cut off to the ovaries. Things were starting to slow down. I started to learn more and more about this. Is a while ago, you know. And then the next thing I know, I'm sitting in the car and I'm melting, and the air conditioner is full blast on, and I'm like, I'm melting, turn the air up. And then it was like full blast, and I'm like, I'm freezing, turn it down. It was like torture. That went on for 6 months, and then it completely stopped. And then it came back and it went on for a couple more months, and then it completely stopped. So what's happening there? I think it's cortisol. I think it's the times in my life where the stress is coming in and affecting, I think, you know, most of it has to do with that. What would you say?
Yeah, so I think this is a great issue. And the hot flashes, the night sweats, kicking covers on, off, one leg on, one leg off. Like, how do you like coordinate this, laying up at night because you can't go to sleep and you're thinking about all these things?
Yes.
I mean, it is just, you know, this is what we have to do. We have to make it easier for us. But what is happening with hot flashes? You're right. There's a cortisol. Certainly cortisol is a big factor. That's a trigger. That's going to increase glucose. Hence insulin comes in. I think insulin's the biggest factor. So insulin resistance, even slightly triggered by cortisol, short-term, long-term, can really make that difference. When we see what helps us with hot flashes, because this is, you know, again, my clients deal with this all the time. So how do we fine tune and get rid of the hot flashes? So my nutritional plan, which I created, the Keto Green Way, helps you get cortisol and insulin in balance. Getting alkaline, drinking your greens, like you're, you know, drinking lots of good fluids, and getting our body rich with alkaline minerals. But it's not just what we eat. 25% is what we eat. 75% is lifestyle. And so, and whatever, if that's when we eat, how we think, what we're dealing with, the toxins in our environment, and the list goes on. So that's a big part of it with hot flashes. And thermoregulation, our internal thermometer, what's happening with that. We need a wide variety of exposures and temperature to keep that thermometer flexible, right? We need that flexibility. So when we're going from our 70-degree home to our 70-degree car to our 7-degree workspace, we're not getting that fluctuation. So our you know, like we're kind of stuck, and little fluctuations can really create a long time problem with the hot flashes. So we have to really work on that, getting out when it's hot, sweating, working out in hot gyms, not cold gyms, and things like that. And also exposing to cold and extremes of temperature. That will make a difference. That will keep your body flexible and adapted and resilient. All those good things that we want, especially as we're going through menopause.
Yeah, I've never heard that before. That's very interesting. And it, you know, I do work out in a gym. It's a metal box with no air. Yeah, literally the fan. I think there's 4 fans, and they're not even big ones. And there's garage doors that are open. So in the summertime, I definitely get the heat. And I love it. I thrive in that. In the wintertime, there's no air, there's no heat, there's no anything. So I avoid it because the cold. This year I'm going to try to bundle up and go, but it's miserable to me to try and exercise like that. But I also do the sauna, and I come in the cold house and the hot outside. So I've never heard of that. How does that actually help us to regulate?
Well, one thing, I think just flexibility and adaptability, so that our body internal temperature has to adjust.
Okay.
So if we're not giving it that exposure, that's one thing. But cold exposure increases brown fat. So that's metabolically helpful too. So I hate the cold too. That's why I'm in Georgia, you know, honestly. And I think about it, I'm like, I could jump in my pool in winter. It just sounds dreadful. But the best I can do is turn my hot shower to cold at the end until I feel relaxed. Yeah. And then I get out of the shower. That's the best I can do to keep that flexibility. I'm like, I can do this for 10 minutes. I'm not going out in any snow anytime soon. So
yeah. Well, that's better than me. I turn on to cold for a second. I'm like, that's enough. And I don't even like to open the door till I'm dry. And I think maybe, and let's throw in the thyroid in there a little bit, because that is also one of our metabolic regulators and probably plays a part in why I hate the cold, because I have Hashimoto's. And so when winter rolls around, it's almost like my thyroid just puts a scarf on. I mean, I really feel like when the weather changes, I just start to automatically don't like the cold, you know? I mean, so that plays a part in our hormones, yeah?
That does play a part. And that's where, you know, like I think standing in the shower, that cold, bearing with it, just think, oh my God, this is doing so good for my skin, my hair, my, you know, body, everything is just, I'm burning, my metabolism is going to increase by doing this. And it's just a good chill mechanism that if we can just stand there long enough to just feel like, okay, I'm comfortable now, let me get out.
Yeah. Okay.
Just a little longer, that may make a difference for you. And I believe that's good for our thyroid too.
Okay.
So there's so much that we can do to help with our thyroid in improving thyroid health and thyroid metabolism. That makes a difference. Little things like that. Certainly, of course, nutrition, but also, energetically. And one of the things I study with some shamans and actually an Indonesian healer in Bali and Northern Bali, Bud, was just how the glands, the organs and glands, especially, whole different energy. So the thyroid is, and I'm sure you know this, the energy of speaking or not speaking your truth, or holding back and not voicing, not using your voice. And so I think of that too. And in different yogas or laughing yoga, laughter is so good for your thyroid. Can we do that more?
Yeah. And I think I'm going to see a lot more improvements in that. I'm getting divorced. So I've been speaking my truth and I've been laughing a lot more. So let's see what happens with the thyroid in the next year or so. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Getting out of toxic situations can always be good for our health. So let's talk about how women can move through some of these changes, because I do remember that morning I found the muffin top and it made itself known to me. I did feel completely hopeless about it. I thought, how am I just doomed to being this way? Is this just going to be the way it's going to be until things balance out? How can we not get so down on ourselves when things start to change?
Yeah. I think that's a really good thing to acknowledge. Like, first is accept where I am now, right? And again, I've been 240 pounds and I worked to lose that quite hard, part of my world journey and my transformation. And then come my second menopause, when I was hitting 40 post-divorce, right? Stressors, etc. Hitting a second bout of early menopause, and then seeing 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds come on again. And you're like, oh my God, after you've lost nearly 100 pounds and have done a really good job of keeping that off. And you're like, I am not, and I know many of your listeners have experienced this, like, I'm not doing anything different.
Right.
And my body is growing. My scale is breaking. I mean, what is going on here? This cannot be happening. And I completely get that. Nothing else changed, right? And from working with thousands of clients who have said that, I'm like, oh, surely something's changed. Oh, no, actually, no, I believe you. So I think that was recognizing this metabolic shift. Okay, I'm rewiring. What do I need to do? So that's where I think, first of all, we have to get the nasty bitch off our shoulder and stop that self-depreciating talk. And that, we wouldn't do that to our best friend's daughter. So let's talk to her if she was having this situation. Our best friend, someone we love and care about, our mother, how would we talk to them if we heard them talking to themselves this way? And how we need to change our self-speak. But also, that's where I really recognize that as estrogen declines, number one, glycolysis is estrogen dependent in the brain for fuel. So as we're losing estrogen, we're getting brain fog and, brain fog, belly fat, fatigue. It's just not okay. So we have to use ketones for fuel. But if we go straight ketogenic, what I found is that we go keto crazy. And I was like, well, this wouldn't work for my patients. It didn't work for me. But then I researched way back I found a paper from 1924 from Cambridge that looked at combining alkalinity with ketosis to help even more in seizure disorder. And that was the aha moment for me, because for decades, I'd been giving alkaline detox programs to my patients. What was happening when I was working to restrict those carbs, my urinary testing, because I would test, we test our urine pH to make sure that we're alkaline, was completely acidic. So when I put that together and really worked with the right nutrients and greens and lifestyle, because also cortisol will make you acidic. When you fix that, focus on getting your body alkaline, then push it into ketosis and combine the two to get keto alkaline, it is like amazing. The weight, 16 pounds off in under 6 weeks. And it was just clarity, focus, amazing. So I think that is a really key as we're transitioning in the menopause, we're getting older, over 40, that we look to keto alkaline lifestyle, or keto green lifestyle, that we recognize the importance of intermittent fasting. And we use the carbs that benefit us and can most nourish our body with healthy minerals and antioxidants.
Okay, so you had mentioned earlier on, and we didn't touch on this, but you said first you do the detoxing, then you move into the other pieces of it. What does your detoxing process look like?
So that is definitely alkalinizing. First, it's the
Okay.
no white, no wheat, no sweet, very little red meat rule, right? And stay with your whole food. So if you can pick it, peel it, fish it, hunt it, milk it, grow it, then for the most part you can eat it. And then keep that time in between dinner, which I like you to have by 7, because after 7, your body increases insulin production by as much as 50%. So you're in total storage mode if you eat after 7. So try to eat at 5 p.m. and keep 13 to 15 hours to rest and digest and restore your body overnight before you eat your next meal.
Yeah.
So that part is allowing your body in its intelligent design to, do the heavy lifting for you.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
part of the first ways. And then I add nutritional supplements. I add my Mighty Maca Green. I add omega-3 fish oils. Those are 2 really important additions to help the body detox.
Okay, so let's talk about adaptogenics just a little bit. I know you talked about maca, but do you believe in anything else like ashwagandha or holy basil or any of those other things? Do they come in? Because I was lucky enough to ride to the to Mindshare with Shannon Garrett, and she and I were talking about the hot flashes. She's so cute. We're both from Tennessee, from the Nashville area. She had a little fan, and we were in the Uber, and we were like both wanting him to just crank up the the air because it was warm there. And I said, you know what? I said, tell me what you think about what to do about hot flashes. And she was talking about omega-3s and then adding in the ashwagandha, the combination of that, the adaptogen, since she's seen a significant decline in hot flashes in women. So what do you think about that combination?
Yeah, so I haven't used ashwagandha so much. So because I have Mighty Maca, and we see a 90% reduction in hot flashes within 2 weeks. So we get really good results with that. But definitely the omegas, definitely vitamin E has been studied and shown to help improve hot flashes, and just decreasing cortisol, and no sugar, zero. I mean, really get rid of sugar, because insulin sensitivity. If you were struggling with hot flashes, I would go like I say, completely keto green. Get your body into ketosis, get alkaline, and do it without fruit. Let's get there first, get rid of your hot flashes, and then let's see what we can add back. Certainly the low glycemic fruits like berries, we'll add those back in, but let's get you symptom free. 90% improved. I'm like the 90, I like to get an A and things. So 90%, 80%, I mean, we'll go there too.
You're such a doctor. You're like, I'd like to get an A in this conversation. Yeah, I get it. Okay. So I want to talk about the fun topic of sex, because that is one of those things that, I think is super important. I think it's important as long as we can possibly have it, that we have that connection with someone, that intimate connection. But yet so many of my friends, again, friends and people I even talk to, it's not even on their radar. And I've even heard this over and over again. If I never have it again, I could care less. And, that's just, to me, that's just not okay. If you're in a loving, supportive relationship, we should want to, shouldn't we? And what keeps us from wanting to?
Well, I think there's a couple things, and I would hear my patients say over and over again, like, I would ask them about this question: how's your libido? And like, doc, I never want to initiate it, but I'm okay once we get started. And that's key, because secondary desire is actually our natural desire, and especially the longer we are in relationships. So once we start getting, caressing, romantic, start feeling better, blood flow starts moving to our lower organs, and then we're like, okay, now I'm turned on. Let's, I'm all in. And I heard that over and over again. That's called a secondary sexual response. And that is the woman's response. The old masters, Johnson, linear design we heard of, from the 60s, 70s, is just obsolete. I mean, it's not correct for women. It's correct for men still, but not for women. So this secondary desire, I call it Candyland, and the whole experience of orgasm is like the game of Candyland. Or, sometimes you get ice cream cones, sometimes you're back 2 steps. You're like, okay, where was I to begin with? And then, so that is natural for women. It's the guys on the Audubon and the women's on the scenic route, right? And so understanding that difference is key, but you enjoy the process. And that's important, to allow yourself the receptivity to get there. Now we need estrogen for that receptivity. We need DHEA for that receptivity, testosterone. So our sex hormones, again, when we are pedal to the metal, when we are stressed, our body's not, no interest in those reproductive hormones. No, sir. Everything's going to cortisol. So again, meditation, relaxation, have fun, bring play back into your life becomes really important. And then also in our mid-40s, we're starting to have the loss of tissue elasticity, and especially in our 50s and beyond. So vaginal dryness, irritation, discomfort after you have sex, discharge after we have sex. I mean, seriously, if it hurts every time you do something, you do not want to do that. If you have discharge odor every time you do something, why would you want to do that, right? It just doesn't make sense. And that's why, especially after retiring my clinical practice, like my clients were like, hey, we didn't get that joy gel, no one else will prescribe it for us, or whatever else I was doing for them. And so I created Julva, which is an anti-aging cream for the vulva. I can show that to you.
Yeah, bring it up. And I remember looking at that when you first made, look how pretty that bottle is. Okay. So tell us about it. What's in it? How does it work? How do you use it? Where can we get it?
Yeah. And we can offer your audience too the free trial. So we have a 7-night, actually we can offer a 7-night trial. So this beautiful little amount here. So we'll offer that to you, Ruth, and can give you a link for this. So a 7-night free trial of Julva to experience it. But the story behind Julva is because I had clients that I've been working with for sexual health for so long, and they're like, well, help me. And I wanted to create something over the counter, natural and safe, that was GMO free, all natural ingredients without parabens, et cetera. Nothing is available. And that really works. So I combined plant stem cells from the alpine rose, which is this beautiful rose that blossoms in the Swiss Alps in the harsh conditions of ice and snow. I mean, like, yes, that's woman. That's the definition of woman right there.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Hello.
Yes. And the science behind those plant stem cells are just amazing. Resilience, anti-aging, antiviral, a lot of good science behind those alpine rose plant stem cells. And then DHEA, one of our adrenal hormones that starts declining in our 20s, that is a precursor to testosterone and estrogen at the intrinsic level, at the cellular level, from the vulva and vaginal tissue can really absorb this. And that makes a difference because, when we lose muscle, like if we're getting the underarm loss of muscle here, we're getting it down in our pelvic floor. And we do need that, whether we want to have sex right now at this moment or not. We need to maintain our pelvic floor, because incontinence, prolapse, we want none of that. Trust me, y'all want none of that. No. An ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. So we keep this tissue healthy. I added emu oil. It's just incredibly emollient and moisturizing and really improves the absorption. And then coconut oil and shea butter. So just great. And it smells good. No added fragrance. Just naturally smells good. It took me 3 years to formulate exactly what I wanted. And now we have over 40,000 users from around the world that just love it. You can read my testimonials on my website at dranna.com. So
yeah, and we'll send that out. Well, you guys, I promise, if you're on this webinar, you're going to get the replay. We're going to get all the links that you need. So don't worry about all that right now, but we'll get that out for you for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. We need to hit some questions. It looks like we've got quite a few questions. We've got about 15 minutes left to go here, and I'll read them so I can make sure we haven't covered it already, so you don't have to worry about that. But a really good question here by Barbara. Can people who have had estrogen positive breast cancer use maca?
I have had clients in my practice who have had.
Just a second.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Okay, yeah. So people who have had estrogen positive breast cancer, can they use the maca?
Yeah, I recommend, like for us, it's the Mighty Maca, because one thing in and of itself, I don't see any problem with using maca, but let's see what it's doing to your body. So measure your estrogen detoxification. If you've had breast cancer, you need to know your estrogen detoxification score. And if this is the first time you're hearing about that, I have a good paper on my blog about estrogen detoxification. So I want you to understand that. Doesn't matter, like however much we have, where is it going? To healthy estrogen pathways or unhealthy estrogen pathways? So look at that first. And the reason I created Mighty Maca Plus with the combination of ingredients was because I wanted to add the other adaptogens, turmeric, quercetin, resveratrol, other ingredients that can really help promote and decrease the inflammatory markers. Mm-hmm. So from multiple avenues. So I have had many clients who have, with breast cancer, with other cancers, endometrial cancer, et cetera, do really well, improve their estrogen detoxification numbers with my Mighty Maca, my program and advice. So all of those things, we have to take that into consideration and take it together. And also Julva. Absolutely. There's great research looking at testosterone, DHEA, vaginal usage, and no increased risk of breast cancer recurrence, as well as decrease, even with vaginal estrogen, we see decreased morbidity and mortality. So it's important to understand in breast cancer survivors that you have options. Read my blog, definitely. We have some great testimonials of women who have had breast cancer.
Awesome. And so for those of you who are maybe a little bit like going, what do you mean put it in the vagina? So our mucous membranes in, the anus, the vagina, the mouth, the nose, all of those areas, isn't that where, and let me just, you clarify for me because you're the doctor, but that is where things are most bioavailable, correct? They go directly into our bloodstream. They don't have to be processed to the liver. We don't have to worry about them upsetting our stomach. Is that why you created it for that, also for the moisture, of course?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Actually, Julva is topical. So use it from the clitoris to the anus and it goes where it needs to go. And you get that great result. Clients report increased moisture, increased sexual desire and orgasm, decreased urinary leaking, decreased symptoms of those accidental leaks when you're jogging, running, laughing, all of those things. So that's really critical. And then again, I didn't want to insert anything into my vagina on a daily basis. So I created it topical. So yeah, totally selfish in my creations. But I'm like, if I don't want to do it, I'm not going to ask you to do it. That's been a rule of thumb in my entire medical practice. So I think that's important. But yes, the vagina is a great, vaginal estrogen, vaginal testosterone, vaginal DHEA are all prescription options that are very, very good because you're bypassing the liver completely.
Right. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Tracy says, are there different brands of HRT? I've been on bio test, I think is what she probably meant to say, for 2.5 years. Haven't felt any different. Finally got off the inject and pellets a few months ago.
Yeah. So as far as testosterone pellets, your compounding pharmacy can make up the right combination for you with a doctor that's good at that. So there's different ways to take testosterone or bioidentical hormones. And I think that's what I understand the question to be. So she mentioned pellets, and pellets are testosterone pellets. I never really, on rare exception, would I do estrogen pellets. Mm-hmm. So testosterone pellets, it's great, especially if you're busy or in this hectic time of your life or season and you can't remember to do something on a daily basis. It's nice. The pellets are in, they should last 6 months. But unfortunately you get this peak and valley. The same with testosterone injections, which is another option for women too. And I like those two options if you have kids. They're probably two of my favorite if you have kids. Number one, you're getting your hormone. Number two, you're not giving it to them. Yeah. Transdermal creams can be transferred from one to the other. Right. So that's really important. If you are using a cream, you wash your hand, you keep your own hand towel that the kids aren't touching, because we've mostly with men, because men have used 10 times the dose of hormones that we do. Yeah. But we'll see that sometimes with man to wife or father to son or daughter. So we don't want that to happen. Right. So it's important. So I do a lot of oral troches. The reason I did oral troches, which are like lozenges that you would let dissolve between the cheek and gum, is number one, also because we have kids, we're not going to give it to them. And number two, I can measure those levels in the blood pretty accurately. When we're on transdermal creams, we really need to look at salivary and urine hormone testing to see what they're doing. But in general, if we're on bioidentical hormones, we want to look at all those different modalities at some time or another as well. Right. Okay, great. So Andre is asking, is the oxytocin given derived from plants or synthetic? Oxytocin derived from, it's just USP oxytocin. So as far as I know, it's bioidentical created oxytocin, but I'm not exactly sure where all the sources are. Yeah. Okay. And it also depends on the kind and who's making it and where it's coming from. Is it compounded? Is it a spray you buy on Amazon or something like that, for sure? Right. There's those different kinds. Typically prescribing, we're getting, pharmaceutical grade, identical oxytocin. We know exactly what we're dealing with. But I've seen homeopathic, I've prescribed nasal sprays, troches, and vaginal oxytocin to individuals. So those are the modalities I'm most familiar with success with.
Okay. So Karen is saying, I'm postmenopausal. I've been on estradiol and progesterone for 3 months with no improvement to vaginal dryness and absent libido. My doctor just put me on testosterone cream a week ago. If I were to see an improvement, how long would that take?
I always say with any hormones, give it 6 to 8 weeks, but definitely try Jova and
Yeah.
see what you feel.
Yeah.
But I would give it any hormone 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah. I've never had luck on any of them. None of them. And I've had better luck of reducing cortisol or reducing, working on stress, seeing things differently, modifying lifestyle than I've had on any hormone for sure. Yeah. Okay. So Tracy, maybe this goes along with it, but what do you suggest for someone who's 20 or 41 and low estrogen, low progesterone, low testosterone, no period in 9 years? Is she in perimenopause or menopause?
Well, definitely I want to know what your gynecologist said, first and foremost.
Yeah.
What was your lab testing? What was your, if you haven't had a period, LH, FSH, what's your body weight? What has your pelvic ultrasound showed? I need those answers right away. I mean, those are what you should have a conversation with your physician about right away, because something's up.
Yeah. At 41 for sure. That's almost, that's early 30s of dealing with that. Yeah. There's too many pieces that play into that to be able to say what your status is, I think, just on a question like that. But so Linda says, what type of hormone testing do you like to do? If a woman is on bioidentical creams, you kind of touched on this, but blood, urine, saliva, or one with metabolites. Can you mention the names of these that you like? If not, then maybe you can tell me and I can share it in an email. Because a lot of people that I interview don't like to share names of products or tests.
Yeah. So there's something. As far as blood testing goes, there's some panels I recommend, and you can look at those panels because I created them at ultalabtest.com/Dr. Anna Cabeca. So DrAnnaCabeca. Okay. The basic numbers I want everyone to have are your DHEA-S in the blood, HSCRP, hemoglobin A1C, and vitamin D level. Everyone listening, especially coaches, you need to know those 4 markers. Those are more important than your estrogen and progesterone right now. I want to know those numbers over time. And then in my full panels, you can see how I ask. The way we order the testing is really important, because we can ask our doctor for an estrogen or hormone test, and you don't know really what we're going to get. So I really specified that out. What do I want to look at with estrogen, progesterone, pregnenolone, vitamin D? What is exactly the markers I want to look at? So those are in my elite panels, and you can look through that, as well as fractionated cholesterol. That's important for us to know. And so that's the blood level testing that I like. When you're on creams, we're not going to see it so much in the blood. We'll just know that it's not too high. And there's some, but mostly there's an art and a science to hormone replacement therapy. So working in concert with your symptoms and your physician to balance that out. But lifestyle, like I said, more important than all of those hormones is cortisol, insulin, and oxytocin. And Carmen just said it again too. So that's key. But precision analytics, urine lab testing, the Dutch test is very useful test.
Yeah.
Very useful. I recommend it. You do it at home. It gives you good information, and it's a really good lab. So I think that's really important. Salivary testing is another option. There's confounding variables, but you can look at ZRT.
Canary Club actually carries ZRT. I think Canary Club does all of those as well. And you can almost get a discount on that, I think. CanaryClub.com.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. There's different companies that will do salivary testing.
Yeah. Okay.
So I say every way you look at it.
Yeah. Benefits for everything for sure. Okay. Simone is asking, you've made me cry. I was so waiting, shoulder deep in treacle. I don't know what that means. When I was 47, I'm almost 52 now, still perimenopausal, but regular as clockwork. I've monitored my periods for 6 years via an app. I understand my body. I went to India to understand my 25 symptoms. I'm so envious of you all. I get rid of all of my symptoms in India. It's a very long story. However, no symptoms, but now 6 months ago, her estradiol was very high. Even with estrogen dominant, she has no symptoms. I never know when I have a period unless I check my app. I eat to protect my body, and I've never taken supplementation. Why do you think my estrogen is so high with no symptoms? Very interesting. Usually you've got something, right?
Right. So, again, I would always never look at one instance in time, because hormones are pulsatile. So maybe we just got it at a pulse point. So let's recheck that. But more important than what your total estrogen is, and are they telling you it's high for your age? Because then, we want it to be high for our age. We want a good, healthy estrogen. We don't want to be piss poor like 80% of the population. So we want it to be good. but also look at the estrogen detoxification. Let's just see what's happening there.
Yeah.
And so that precision Dutch testing would look at that.
Yeah. I'm not sure if they can do Dutch testing where you are, Simone. I know that you're not in the United States, but that's something to consider. Okay. Then Jennifer is asking, what herbs do you recommend for low estrogen if I'm not ready to try bioidentical hormones? Yeah, I've been using natural progesterone cream for years during perimenopause, but now I'm officially in menopause. I'm having symptoms of low estrogen.
So I would recommend maca, for instance. So for sure, absolutely, Mighty Maca, because the detoxing powers of the combination. I'll show you that to you. This is the Mighty Maca Plus, and you can read no GMO, gluten-free, dairy-free, all those important things that we want. I mean, my daughters drink this. You know, there's volleyball teams. It tastes good too. So there's a benefit to that, and that can really help with hormone balance. So that makes a difference too. And also adrenals. We gotta go up level when we're having these low hormones. So adrenals, brain health, meditation, all of those things can, addressing those areas will make a difference in how you feel.
Yeah, I can honestly answer this, and this might be TMI for those of you who know me really well, but too bad. So I have had my hormones are bottomed. Obviously, my Dutch test will show you that I am absolutely postmenopausal. And I will say that since being relieved of, again, toxic relationships, I have no problems with anything in the sexual health department. Out of the blue, everything seemed to return to normal. Everything. Yes. And I mean, in a very good way. I didn't ever think at 47 years old, almost 4 years postmenopausal, that I would ever not need something to, help me with those types of things. Now, the hot flashes at night are still, they're there, but during the day they're gone. So I can really attest to this, and I probably should just do a live training for my closed groups on this, but to everything that you're saying, I can absolutely attest that you are 100% on top of it when it comes to changing the way that you live, also assessing the way that you see your life and the stressors in your life and how you're living and how you're relating to other people. So I'm super happy to hear you say that, because it's always going to bring me back to knowing that that's the basic foundation for returning to a feeling of health, especially even after menopause, right?
Absolutely. Right on.
Exclamation point on everything you're saying. All right. So, Diane's asking, do you recommend thyroid and adrenal testing before prescribing any hormones?
Before prescribing any hormones, you should have a hormone testing. So, it's when it comes to like taking thyroid hormone we want to know where we're at. Certainly, I do a lot of inventories. I do a lot of questionnaires, hormone toxicity symptom questionnaire. I mentioned my oxytocin quiz, different inventories. That helps. It keeps those self checks are a way to budget out the lab test, because we can monitor with our symptoms. Are we progressing? What do I need to do to improve more? Right. But I think lab testing, it's simple, quick, overall, get it for ourselves and invest in that and look at where your levels are, and not just like a TSH, right? So you'll see in the panels that I recommended, there's the thyroid antibodies, right? But what kind of thyroid antibodies? What free T3 and free T4? How are we looking at T3 and T4? And so the way we look at the labs makes a difference too, but we want all of that information, and I want to see it improve over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we've got, one comment from Tracy. I asked my gynecologist, she put off all my hormone issues and brushed me aside. You need a new doctor. It's just my opinion. And you could tell her I said
period that. For 9 years, you have to get that worked out. 100%, please.
There's something going on there. Yeah. And Augustina says, is maca also good for low testosterone?
Absolutely. Yeah. We've seen improvements in low testosterone and low DHEA with maca. With my formula, Mighty Maca Plus, we saw in age range of 40 to 72 year olds in 2 months, an increased range from 70% at the low end to 200% at the high end of DHEAS in the blood. So we saw an improvement. Again, the combination of ingredients, that's what I've studied. That's what I know can make a big difference.
Right. And let me just throw this out there too. You had mentioned earlier, talking about insulin resistance and problems with insulin and blood sugar and all of that. I have a family member that had been on testosterone for years. He's in his 70s. And, I said, well, and then he also had insulin resistance. I said, well, let's work on that part. Let's see what we can do with getting you back to being sensitive to insulin. Let's work on these lifestyle things. And then after all of that took place, the insulin resistance gone, the testosterone drops and all of the medications and stuff went down probably, I would say 60 to 65%. Just working on those pieces, he was starting to feel things change. So I said, talk to your doctor about bringing down that DHEA and the testosterone to levels that you can maintain at. And it's been over, I think, 1.5 to 2 years now that things have been leveled out. So I think maybe we try so hard to reach for the thing that's going to be the big miracle, when really, why don't we just sit quietly and breathe for a few minutes a day and start to hug people more and get in touch with what we need as human beings to be healthy.
Yeah. And fast intermittently, right? Yeah, all those things make the biggest needle movers. I have my book that's coming out in March. It's called The Hormone Fix: Burn Fat Naturally, Boost Energy, Stop Hot Flashes, Sleep Better, the Keto Green Way. And it's totally focused on how how we can do this naturally without prescriptions and surgeries. And I also, of course, put in when it's necessary. But there's so much that's within our power. So
yeah. Okay, so we're at the 1 o'clock hour, and you guys, so yes, I see your comments. We will, I've written some notes here. Anna, if you will have your team send the Ulta lab test link that you said / something, so we don't have to type it in. If you'll have your team send us that. I would love the link. If you've got any affiliate programs or just a Jolva program period, send us the link for that. Sure. Anything that's related to what you're offering and what you're talking about today, this is really good information. I'm actually going to try the maca again just to see if I can go after those night sweats. So I'll be ordering that product myself and keeping that Jolva in my head for if the need arises. It's just really been valuable. And thank you so much for talking about oxytocin. We've never talked about that before.
Oh, I'm so glad. My favorite hormone. So thank you for allowing me to be here to share my knowledge and wisdom and interact. This has been fun. Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So we will, your book is coming out, when did you say? In the spring?
March. Yep.
In March. Okay. So let's just think about maybe having you back and do a little launch of the book and talking more about hormones, and we'll gather some questions and we'll do it again.
Perfect. Sounds great. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much, Anna. Thanks everyone for being here, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Have a great day. Bye everyone.